How are you doing today?
Hello, I'm great,
Hi.
but I didn't get to hear any of the little private chat,
Oh.
so that was not good. Y'all had so much fun. I had fun with Janet, but so why are you here? I know, but are you like a chorus fan? And oh, awesome! From the eight, are you
Whoa.
serious? Oh, bless your hearts, you've hung in. That's a lot. That's a lot. And have you heard the chorus before? That's all right. You're sitting here because why? This is the perfect spot for you to be. Okay, stories. Explain it.
You're retiring. Why else would I go out from Australia?
Right?
What? Wait, like off the plane, Australia, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
You all came
Excuse for a trip.
perfect. I love
I
that. Oh my
love.
gosh, what a great
Flight's
goodbye.
sort of a secondary, but
Yeah.
yeah.
No, 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 no. I want to tell people you came just for my retirement.
When
Yeah.
when the chorus published that you were retiring,
Right?
that was my first question to him was, "Are we going?" And between then and now, it's been, "Shit, can we leave our country? Can we get into
Well,
America?"
there is that. Travel, international travel is, yeah, iffy. Well, and you all, Australia was doing so well for a long time.
It was.
Then you screwed up. Somebody came and, yeah, awesome. And behind you on the back row, what's your story?
Why
You
are you
just
here
showed up at
tonight?
Manny's. There's a good one. Awesome. Well, I hope I can hold up to that. Janet is my friend and a longtime supporter of the chorus. And when the chorus took its big tour with 300 people to the south, to Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, North Carolina, and South Carolina, Janet and her husband came along on that trip as supporters and fans, and that was awesome. Okay, your turn.
Me? Well, I go to the opera, I go to the symphony occasionally, and I thought maybe this would be like an opportunity to expand my interest.
I think that is true. I think you're slumming it tonight. So I think it's great. Okay, over in the corner.
I know a member. I'm thinking about auditioning later in January.
Oh,
I've
awesome.
never actually heard anything, and when I saw this opportunity to come in here and speak, I thought it'd be a great idea to just come in and.
100%. It won't be me, but
No, but
yeah,
you feel
sadly, very sad.
I did.
Just kidding. No, no, my replacement is fabulous. You know a member in the chorus?
I believe so. It's somebody by the name of Daniel. No first name Daniel. Don't know last name. Starts with an L, I think. But
Uh,
we're Facebook
Daniel
friends.
Daniel Lyons.
Yes.
Yes, yes, there are 275, and I know all their names. Whether or not I could put those names to the face when I see them, that's a whole other question. But that's just old age. So I know their names. I know Daniel. He swaps back and forth from Danny, but this week he is Daniel, for real. So don't call him Danny, and do not tell him I told you that sometimes he's called Danny. So awesome. So what do you want to know?
What are you doing next, and what is propelling you?
Oh, that's a great question of why I'm here. That's really of interest to you. Really of interest to you. The rest of people don't give a shit what, where I'm going or why, but it's okay because it's fascinating. Um, well, the
What's
that person is going to audition.
Which march is that?
Oh, it's
Or which parade? Which biking?
No, they just do it. Sometimes they just like gather a group of bike
I saw the flags, and it's
yes,
Pride weekend.
a moment to appreciate.
Yes.
yeah. There are lots of flags, but not yeah because there's no march
No,
tonight.
Yeah.
they've done it like once a month where like it's this
How did
group
I
that
Well,
miss
I
that?
love that.
comes together for
It's
bikes.
so San
And you
Francisco.
just join
Yes.
people and bike around the city in like a big
Yeah. That was
squad.
It
cute.
would be really like San Francisco if they were naked.
And just so you,
Which we do. We have nude bike rides
I know I was hoping you'd do a special Pride version.
and nude
wouldn't you shave
people.
in places?
I think it's a terrible idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
You guys should do it and then report
No.
Yeah. Right. How was that for you? No, because the Trans March is tomorrow, and the chorus is marching in the Trans March.
Really?
Yep.
Does the chorus march in that march every year?
This no, in the Trans March.
In the
This
Trans
is the
March.
first time to be in the Trans March.
Wow.
But that's because we've changed our bylaws, and now our bylaws no longer state any reference to gender. You just have to be able to sing tenor or bass. So we had, this is the best story. It's just the best story. So nobody joined, we have trans men in the chorus, but we had not had any cisgendered women or trans women until January, when we had our first trans woman audition, who happens to be the sister of one of our singers, and they look alike, and they're both gorgeous. And at our spring concert, they sang a duet.
Did they have the Aloha shirts?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, Vinnie
Okay.
Lee and Victoria Lee.
Darian, do you remember? It was like it looked like
yeah,
it was
of course
from.
you did, because they're just gorgeous.
Yes.
She made those the shirt and
They
the
were
dress.
stunning.
It was yeah, that's quite something. And that recording of the world premiere, Songs of the Phoenix, is released tomorrow. I know, it's very exciting. We're
This
very
is
excited.
actually a great segue. In case you guys run out of questions, I have questions too. So,
Well, I was hoping.
no, I just love how you just made yourself at home. We refer to this space as our living room, and you were our guests and just made everyone else feel comfortable. So,
Good.
thank you very much. But it's very interesting. The group organization is the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus.
Correct.
And you talked about the bylaws change.
Correct.
Tell us, how was that process? Was it contentious? Was it, the time is right, let's do it?
Correct. The time is right. Yes, and interestingly enough, for good or for bad, the chorus did not choose to spend years studying it, because that never works out well. I mean, because everybody's got an opinion,
Right.
and or two,
And we're in San Francisco, so
three.
they have 5.
100%, and change is hard. And so, really, we've been working diligently on diversity, equity, inclusion, and for 2.5 years, we have a committee, we have a consultant. So we've been really working on opening ourselves up to all voices. And when last May, we're allowed to change our bylaws in June. Every June. We don't just change our bylaws, every month. So when June came up, we'd been doing all this work. We didn't have anybody knocking at the door saying we want to audition, but it was brought to the chorus, because the chorus has to vote on any bylaws changes. And the president of the chorus stood up in rehearsal and said, "We've talked about this in our leadership team, and we think we should change the bylaws so that anybody can join who sings tenor and bass." And everybody's like, "Okay, well, let's vote." In 4 weeks. I mean, it wasn't like, now you have to vote.
Yeah.
But it was 4 weeks, and I don't think this is for public consumption, but I'll tell you, is it on Zoom? This is on Zoom?
Yeah.
Hi, y'all. I forgot that. No, I can tell it. There was 85% in favor of the bylaws change. So it was not, and I'm 100% aware and in sync or in empathy with the 15%, because it's a huge change in an organization that has been the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus for 44 years.
Right.
It's big.
So speaking of Zoom, I mean, I have to say, before asking the question, Darian works with Backhoe, because that's something I want to talk to you about. And we went to the program, and I was sharing with Monix how amazing it was to just be in Davies Hall, gorgeous space, and the chorus has some of the most fabulous fans. I mean, walking around, all we saw was fashion. And in San Francisco, fashion really stands out, because it's like, wow, you put planning into that outfit, into those shoes. It was
Right,
great.
yeah.
I was in heaven.
Yeah.
And so seeing the waves of chorus members coming through, I remember when we talked for the previous interview, you talked about working through Zoom. How has the pandemic impacted how you all work, and what impacts will remain?
Very good question. In a word, Zoom sucked. Just sucked for a choir when you're not allowed to be with anyone. And so they never managed. It's crazy in this tech world that nobody ever came up with a platform where people can sing together and hear each other. If you ever tried to sing Happy Birthday or anything else on Zoom, it's funny in a really sad kind of way because it's awful because there's delay and so you cannot sing together. So 2 years of that or a year and a half of just Zoom, and we were really fortunate to be able to do some amazing videos, virtual choir videos as it were, but oh my gosh, those poor people, the poor singers, because they had to sing their part by themselves into their Zoom, into their camera, and then the audio editors, then get all those 150 voices or whatever, and it's hard. That's the hard part. No, that's not true. Singing by yourself with the accompaniment coming in your ear. So you've got earbuds in your ear and you're singing and all you hear is yourself. Oh, it's demoralizing. So the numbers that would do the videos shrank because people are like, I don't. There's not enough therapy for me to do that and get over my low self-esteem. So thank goodness we got to sing in the parking lot of behind the Dolores Mission, and that was fun. That was in May of 2021, and then by the fall of this last year, we were allowed to come back, and we did some Zoom rehearsals. And then is this interesting? Okay, I'm so bored. And so we came back, and they allowed 36 singers in the room. We now own our building down the street at 170 Valencia.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And we have this huge room. And so we had 36 singers, 6 feet apart, in masks, and they were allowed to come and sing. But then the singers were at home at least hearing singing and singing along or not singing along, but instead of just hearing on Zoom. So we live streamed, and interestingly enough, we're still live streaming. Still, after all this time, we're live streaming. In January, we had 8 concerts in December, and we got through 5 of them, and the last 3 got canceled. The 9 o'clock Christmas Eve. Were you all here?
No.
Okay, good. Because people. Oh, because you were locked down. Yeah, because people come from all over the world for the Castro shows, literally for the Castro shows. And I will say, regardless of all the stuff going around about the new owners of the Castro, we're on the calendar for Christmas Eve.
Excellent.
And
Excellent.
there's no way. We've been doing that since 1990. So we've been doing that show for 32 years in that space at that time. And there's no way they were going to kick the gay chorus out on Christmas Eve. I mean, we're right up there with a sing-along Little Mermaid. Yeah, I mean, we rank right up with the best. With the sound and the sing-along Sound of Music.
Yeah.
We rank right up. That's more popular than the Little Mermaid. But so that's the Castro. So, we had to cancel those 3 concerts. They were sold out already. 4,000 people had already bought tickets. That was an interesting story. You did ask for the dirt and the scoop, didn't you?
What good impacts or the impacts of this period do you think the course will continue?
Thank you for getting me back on track,
No
Precious.
worries. My brain does the same thing. It's all about the thread.
No. So, interestingly enough, because COVID, I don't know if you all know, COVID's not gone yet. Jesus, I was not actually calling on him for his help, but last Saturday we had all-day retreat to get ready for my retirement concert, and lo and behold, if we didn't have somebody at that retreat get symptoms on Sunday morning. So yeah, we rip back all of a sudden on Monday night. We rehearse fully masked, and I mean, we're just bouncing with this.
Oh my
So I'm getting to the good part.
Okay.
While I'm talking, so there's a trait. It's in the book. There's a trait that the Seeligs have, and that is we can talk until we think of something to say.
Oh my gosh.
So,
That
yeah.
is prevalent in my patriarchal
I
line.
think it may be Southern.
The Greens.
We can just talk.
Because we
until-
both have ministers in our family.
Boy, do we.
And ministers have to fill up those 45 minutes if they're Southern Baptists.
45.
Okay, sorry. If they're
Long-
Black
the
Baptists, at least
hour.
45. We're not doing an hour.
Only the Lutherans do 20 minutes, and they beat us to the cafeteria.
But the Catholics have their service full cycle, 1 hour.
And sometimes they don't do it at God's. They don't do it at God's time. 11 on Sunday morning. They do it at weird times. Yeah, I have a whole.
That's the best thing about the 9 o'clock concert.
Is
You end the 9 o'clock concert, and you can roll on to MHR for midnight mass.
Good point.
people do that all the time.
Well,
Yeah.
straight out of one into the other.
Probably 20% go to midnight mass, and the rest go to 440 and all the bars. They're so happy. Well, we bring 4,000 people into the Castro on Christmas Eve, which ordinarily there would be like 3 people there. And so they were all excited this year because we're coming back. And then we didn't get to come back. Okay, the good part. We've learned a lot about live streaming. So now we live stream every rehearsal so that when people can't come, if they've been exposed, they're not missing a rehearsal.
Are those can the public view those as well?
No.
Okay.
No. If you know somebody, you might get a link. Like people that come really far might get a link to the rehearsals. You can. The rehearsals, Janet has a link. I'm not telling that out of school, and it's on Zoom. But yeah, I'm not really suitable for public consumption during a rehearsal. They've tried to limit the F word from flying, but it hasn't worked out so well. So, but never in anger. It's just one of my favorite humorous words. So we've learned to do that. She's turning Zoom off. She's like, oh my gosh, no, I can't do this. And so we've learned to do that, which is great. And up to this point, all of our meetings, no rehearsals, but all the meetings have been on Zoom. And we hope they will stay on Zoom. I mean, when you have a board meeting that's an hour, and you have board members or a leadership team or those kinds of meetings, and people don't have to drive from Marin for a meeting that's an hour long and drive home, we don't do that anymore.
Excellent.
So I think it's a benefit for everybody. I think it's part of the remote working model, and it's a good thing we learned it because we're going to go into renovations on our building, and so the staff members will still be meeting and working remotely.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and we have to move rehearsals.
Oh, gosh. It's so funny that you were talking about the singing on Zoom. Today's my grandmother's birthday. She's 101.
Oh, my God.
And she celebrated her 99th birthday via Zoom. And at that point, you're just amazed by everything. So it was so funny because the attempt at singing was so painful.
It's so bad.
But the thing was, there was the additional layer because, there's the classic birthday song. Then there's the Stevie Wonder, Dr. King birthday song. And people started singing without first agreeing on which song. So to call it a cacophony,
yes.
the discord
I love it.
was painful. But she was so giddy with excitement that she's she's so
adorable.
kind. She was like, "You all were so nice to sing for me."
Oh my God. On Zoom, on this thing
On
called Zoom.
Zoom.
Well, and also we found early on that the loudest voice grabs the mic. I
Yeah.
mean, you don't grab the mic, but whoever's loudest is the one you sing the most, that you hear the most, and rarely is the loudest the prettiest. Yeah, no, rarely.
In
Yeah.
that case, I think it was my Uncle Leo who should never be allowed
To
to
sing,
sing.
yeah.
But he was just so excited for his sister.
Uncle Leo, mute. Push the mute button.
Exactly.
So yeah, the chorus is it's just this amazing family community. It's everything that you see it to be, and messy family. Of course, I mean we have 250 gays and in a room every week, and I know, Precious, you don't want me to tell the bad things about the pandemic. We have these things. We sing, and we are activists, and we have community in that family, that we're a family, and all of it went. So we were not able to, we do what, 40 to 50 appearances a year for benefits and for organizations, and all those are gone. We have a huge youth outreach where we sing in schools called Reaching Youth Through Music. And we have a waiting list of high schools, middle schools that we go to and sing and present these programs. Gone.
So it's not reopening.
Oh, yes.
anytime?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. We pivoted, and my associate, Mitch Galley, who's in charge of that, started doing the assemblies via Zoom for high schools because they're all on Zoom.
Yeah.
And so all of that worked out really well, but it's still not the same as
Yeah.
being live. So all the sort of stool legs of what the chorus is just knocked out during the pandemic. We just sat around, as everybody did, being really sad. That was the happy part.
No, I wanted to hear both sides. So, so many questions come up, but I want to return to a thread that you started. You mentioned your book. If you don't have a copy already, we have copies for sale, A Tale of Two Tims.
Or they could be for free.
Okay.
I just
Or
don't,
they could
like
be
I
for
said,
free.
I just don't want to have to carry them back home.
Okay.
It's fine.
And we have Sharpies at the ready. So let's talk about The Tale of Two Tims.
Have you all read this book? Okay, great.
Has anyone read
They're going to get a free one.
Okay. So there will be no pop quiz. So
I don't know, but I have the cutest socks
okay, by
In-
the way, this is
in
also
America.
yes, an unofficial Manny's tradition when Manny is up here moderating.
For real?
I don't think he realizes it, but he literally has different socks every time. And okay, I don't think he's done Golden Gate. So we'll have to let him know when he gets back.
I'm going to take them with me. I think I have them on the wrong foot. I had no idea they went on foot.
No, but I see the bridge. The
No,
bridge
but
is,
it should be on your outside.
but it's on the
of
outside
your
on this
foot.
one.
Oh, okay, that one. Well, then you can't swap them.
Yeah, no.
Okay, well, that was deep. Oh my gosh, Precious. What time is it?
All right, so.
No, really, what time is it?
It is a quarter of.
Okay, we're good.
Yes.
Um,
Why did you write the book?
One moment.
Of course. Oh my goodness, we have a reading.
We're going to have a reading at the beginning, and we're going to have a reading at the end.
And the subtitle is Big Old Baptist, Big Old Gay, which is fun.
A baby was born, wrapped in swaddling clothes, lying in Fort Worth, Texas. The father seemed happy about the birth. The mother was extra happy thanks to the C-section. Big brother, not so much. But alas, something was wrong. Perhaps it was the lighting or the outfit. Big brother, who probably taunted the precious baby when the parents turned their heads. Perhaps the baby boy sensed the disappointment that he was not Katie. That's what they wanted, the hoped-for girl who was to have been named for the maternal grandmother. Regardless of the reason, the newborn, it's me, cried for 2 years. Perhaps he was a tiny red-faced soothsayer seeing a glimpse of the future, the grand opera that in 2 35-year acts was just beginning. It was the start of a wild life full of you can't make this shit up moments. Just like opera, which we were talking about, the unreal librettos. I set my own sail toward opera land, with a good dose of opry land thrown in. The decision was made for me by some opera director in the sky. He, she, they also decided what kind of opera it would be and what role I would play. My voice, temperament, and body type suited the light opera buffa or comic operas, especially Mozart. There's lots of tomfoolery, fun, and even some gender-bending roles. How delightful, yes, please. But no, the regisseur, or Big Cheese, ignored opera buffa and chose verismo for the libretto of my life. So if you don't know verismo, the word, they in the Mozart Handel years, all the plots are funny. They're funny. They're literally mostly comedies and gender bending and tomfoolery. And then in the 1800s, Verismo hit Italy, and that's when they started. They were all dying. They all had consumption, and so there was lots of between the arias and stuff like that. And they die and they kill each other, and they jump off turrets. So Verismo is the word for truth. So while I desired the tomfoolery life, I got the truth life, and I've managed to turn that libretto of verismo into my very own opera buffa, which is comic opera. That's the opening. So that was the baby boy that was born into the womb of the Baptist Church, of the Southern Baptist Church, and my mother was a singer, voice teacher, and sang with Billy Graham, and my father was the vice president of the largest Baptist seminary in the world in Fort Worth. And my brother, the one that taunted me and made me cry for 2 years, he ended up being a Baptist minister of a church with, are you ready? 70,000 members. But when I came out in a little church. I was married with 2 children, and when I came out, it was a little church with 22,000 members. It was, people go, how'd that go for you? And I'm like, yeah, you can imagine. Anyway, I was raised in the Baptist church, and that's what we did, and that's who we were, and we all ended up being professional Baptists in some manner. But my path was to be an opera singer, and I did and became one. And but that was okay for mom and dad because I could still minister. I could still be an opera singer and save people on the way to the stage or whatever. And there was still an opportunity. It wasn't like I was going to be conducting a gay choir, for heaven's sake. So, which of course they never thought of. And I laugh about, when you're young, when you're a child and people say, what do you want to be when you grow up? No one ever said, I want to wave my arm at gays. They just don't. Today they might, maybe not when they're 7, but who knows? We have a lot of children coming to concerts. So anyway, I grew into that and did that and did all the right things and married and went off to Europe twice and was an opera singer. And then at 35, I came home and I was the associate minister of music of the First Baptist Church of Houston, Texas, the church with 22,000 members, and on the faculty of the Houston Baptist University. And I couldn't do it. I was 35 and I couldn't do it anymore. So when y'all can ask any questions you want about that part.
Did you all wait, so when you got married and had your family, you knew?
God, no.
Okay. So,
no. It was tucked away, just tighter than a drum, somewhere far, far away. Now, I came out at 35, and the Baptist mother singer, I said to her, okay, look, when we got real after a few years, when did you first know? And she goes, I think I knew when you were 5. And I was like, well, hi. Thanks for telling me, waiting for me to figure out 30 years. And she goes, well, all the other little boys wanted to go out and play, and you wanted to go and look at dress patterns at the fabric store. Hello. So mom and dad both had an inkling early on, but I had one experience as a freshman in college where an older fraternity brother absolutely molested me. He should not have, but I was also conflicted of the curious and what is this, and he took advantage of that. And I left that whole town. I was like, okay, I'm going to leave that town because I can leave the gay behind. And I went to Shawnee, Oklahoma, where there were surely no gays in Shawnee, Oklahoma. And and I did not find any there for my last 2 years of college, mostly because I had on blinders and was scared to death. But so then I was celibate as far as homosexuality was with my wife. I was faithful to my wife, yeah,
So may I
for a
ask-
long time.
Yeah. What broke you open? At 35.
It's a good question. We were miserable. Are you kidding? I mean, we'd been married by this time 13 years, and gay men are not able to give women they're married to the kind of emotional support that they deserve and that they need. And we make up for it in every other way. We cook, we clean, we dress the kids. I was just total nurturer, thinking that will make up for a complete lack of the emotional kind of connection that a man and a woman should have. So she was a singer also, and so we would just fight and go to church and sing, and do the special music, and people just moved, and then we would get in the car and start fighting, just arguing about anything. And so I knew that couldn't last, and it was going to hurt the kids eventually. And it's interesting, there are no studies that I know of that compare the damage of a man coming out when your kids are 7 and 9 and the trauma that inflicts as compared to the man that didn't come out and fought with his wife the whole way through. Which kids are more screwed up? Well, we don't know because nobody studied it that I know of. I'd love to know that. But yeah, coming out was what broke me open. That was your question. We were miserable, and I started trying to decide what to do about that. And I went to my first dirty bookstore in Houston when my wife and the kids were off seeing her parents, and I didn't know what they did in a dirty bookstore. I had no idea. I did the little tour, and I still didn't get it. I didn't know. I was like, there are a lot of cars here, and I didn't see any people on the tour, and so I sat out front. I think this is in the book, isn't it, Janet? And some man comes out, and I sat in the car, and he looked nice. He had nice clothes. And so I just walked up and I said, can I ask you a question? And this is long before these days where you get accosted all the time and you're not like, no. And he said, oh, okay. And I was like, so what do you do in there? And it totally freaked him out. And he jumped in his car and went off. And I was asking a normal question like, do you knock on the door? Do you go, hello? I didn't know. So I started to dabble. And I still thought, I actually went to a Christian counselor, which is delicious in the book. My 3 Christian counselors are delicious. One was when I was 19 and I had left school because I'd been abused. And I went and I told this man I was gay. And he gave me a test. And he said, we're going to go through the Bible. And my test said, you're not gay. I was thrilled. And he helped me get married. It was great. That was number 1. It worked out well. Number 2 was I went to a Christian counselor and told him that I was dabbling. And he said, well, I know what you do, and I know what a fabulous ministry you and your wife have. So my recommendation is just keep doing what you're doing, but don't let it ruin your ministry.
Wow.
I'm like, okay. It was the best thing anybody ever said to me because that literally slapped me across the face. I'm like, I cannot believe you are sitting here taking money from the church who was paying for it and just told me that. So that was a wake up.
That's a
It kind of
clarifying
broke-
moment.
Oh, 100%. And because it's what I was doing. But to have somebody say, that's good, because I was miserable and dangerous in those days. Dangerous. Oh, boy. So here's what happened, since you asked. I was in Dallas finishing my doctorate, and I met a man at a bathhouse. I'll just tell you the whole thing. It's high Zoom. And, well, it's in the book. And he was so nice. And he said, I want you to come spend the night at my house sometime. I want you to come spend the night at my house. And I was like, oh, I can't do that. I could never do that. I mean, you and I can do this little thing, but no, 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 no. And he kept after me. And finally, before it was the summer and I was finishing my doctorate, and I was like, I'm going to try that. I'm going to do that. And I went over to his house, and he was an older man, gentle, sweet, and he held me in his arms all night. And I woke up in the morning, no, I could never go back, that I had found home. I'd never felt that before. And so I went home. But obviously, I didn't just call home and say, good luck with the kids. And here's $5. So I went back to Houston where we were and said, we have to see a counselor. And that was counselor number 3. And boy, was he precious. So my wife chose a lovely Christian counselor. I didn't know we were going to get into this story, but you asked what broke me open. And so we went to a counselor, and he said, I'm going to meet with you separately. And I was the first one, and I walked in, and I was like, I'm gay. And he goes, yeah, I know. And I told him all the dabbles. I told him the spending the night with a man and all this. And the next day, when my wife came, he told her all that. All of it. Dirty bookstore. He's having sex in the park. Oh, yeah. So that was Wednesday night. We had church supper that night and choir rehearsal. And,
Bible study?
And Bible study. And she's literally spent the day calling all our family and our friends saying he's a homo. And went to the preacher. And so within 2 weeks,
Was the preacher your brother?
No.
Okay.
No, but that's a whole good story. You just stepped in. My brother was at a mega church in Phoenix, Arizona, and I was at First Baptist of the Houston. And so they fired me with a whole list of things that if you'll do this, we might not fire you, like reparative therapy and all that. And I was like, no, I don't want any of that. And so I was gone 3 months when they hired my brother to take my place. Yay, Baptists. And he did. And the caveat was, we'll hire you to take your brother's place if you will disown him to the church in public. And he's like, well, that's a good gig. I'll do it. So he did. So that's, and then you ask, well, how was Thanksgiving after that? Not good. So.
And it's just you and your older brother?
That's correct.
Oh.
Oh, brutal.
So
Yes.
my Bible scholarship is a little shaky. But one of the things that I recall that Jesus, according to the stories of the Bible, was kind of not down with and spoke out against were people who engaged in performative worship, the Pharisees, I think, who were more focused on, oh, you have to wear this way as opposed to that way. But if you give me $20, I'll look the other way. And it sounds like, because one of the things that's always wild with, I think a lot of particularly Southern Christians is just how quickly and loudly and repetitively they will tell you how good and Christian they are. Like one of the things that used to annoy me, one of my grandmother's friends, like, we would keep our distance, but you would ask her how she was doing, and she'd say, oh, I'm blessed and highly favored, which the snarky
Wow.
monkey in me would be like, but your house is only 2 bedrooms. Like literally from high school. I'm like, if you're
not highly favored.
Right. I was
Maybe
like,
just
you're
favored.
favored, but wouldn't you have like 2 cars? Oh my gosh. It was a hot mess, but it hurts from this great distance to hear in this new form Christians basically ignoring the actual red letter of the Bible.
Correct. Well, in my opinion, they do that all the time, and
Yeah.
it has become the equivalent to organized religion. It's what they do,
Yeah.
and therefore to be done with organized religion, not with people within organized religion. However many of them there are like 5 who are real and authentic
yeah.
people. We are having one at the concert. We're having authentic at the concert, which I'm going to jump way ahead, but I was 35. And so then I found the gays a gay choir 1 year later, and now have been conducting gay choirs for 35 years. So therefore, the big old Baptist and the tale of two Tims. I was a Baptist for 35 of them, and then I've been a big gay for 35. Not a little gay, but a big gay, and proud of it. And all the things that go with that. I became, well, where was I going with that story before that?
You were talking about-
Greenville,
yeah.
First Baptist Greenville, South Carolina. If you haven't seen Gay Chorus Deep South, which is our documentary about our tour, it's featured this month on Paramount Plus. And
really?
it is. If you pull up Paramount Plus, there's Gay Chorus Deep South. And our final concert, when we were planning our tour to 5 states, the final concert, they said, somebody said, I think we could give our big concert at First Baptist Church of Greenville, South Carolina. And I'm like, when pigs fly. Yeah, no, y'all silly. And they said, well, why don't you call the pastor? And we did. And we ended up doing our final concert at First Baptist Church, Greenville, South Carolina, which was one of maybe the 10 churches that started the Southern Baptist Convention. And we found this pastor who's real, and we found a church that's real. And we've continued to be friends. Yeah. And when we were there, the gay chorus in Greenville had just pooped out. It had just pooped out. And I met with the chorus while I was there, what was left of the chorus. I think there were 4, could have been 3. It could have been 3 members left. And we inspired those people. And the church organist said, I'll be the director. And the pastor of the First Baptist Greenville said, well, I'll be the board chair. And so they are bringing their whole choir to this concert, 30 of them. They're all going to sing on the last song. Yes, it's going to be like, what? This is so not supposed to happen. And that's been some of the greatest things that aren't supposed to happen are actually happening because there are few people around who are standing up for what's right.
That's amazing.
I know.
How did your parents react?
Well, what do you think?
I mean, you talked about a subsequent conversation you had with your mom, so clearly.
Correct.
And you also talked about Thanksgiving.
Maybe 2 years in, maybe 3 years in, I dressed in drag, and I looked.
What's your drag name?
Well, I've had several, but Delacia Delish, because Dallas, Delacia Delish. I'm really quite beautiful, and at the concert, you'll get to see a little bit of it. I'm not going to be in drag, but there might be a picture or two on the screen, on the big screen. Maybe 3 years later, I dressed in drag, and I had to show my mother because I look exactly like her. I was like, Mom, I would never even tell you I did this, but you have to see this picture. And she was like, oh, my goodness, my baby boy looks like me. Mom and Dad were really good, and I'll tell you the bottom line to Mom and Dad. My brother was a shit. He's dead. But so my mom and Dad, he's actually dead. He was dead to me long before he was dead to the rest of the world. And his side of the family not happy with my memoir. Oh, not so happy. In fact, we don't speak anymore, and that's fine. Truth hurts. But so Mom and Dad, through all this, I mean, they didn't ever join PFLAG or anything, but I was the conductor of the Gay Men's Chorus at Dallas, which didn't have gay in its name, which is, as an FYI, there are 180 LGBTQ plus choruses in North America. 60% of them don't have L or G word, don't have that in their name. Seattle Men's Chorus, Turtle Creek Chorale, I mean, 60% of them don't. So it's not an anomaly. Anyway, Mom and Dad came to this, and they would tell their friends this. Do you believe God is omnipotent? And their friends would go, well, of course we believe God is omnipotent. And Mom and Dad is like, then why would we tell him what to do with Tim? If he's omnipotent and God wants Tim to change, he's powerful enough to do that. We don't have to tell him or try. Oh, it's a mic drop. It's a total mic drop. And they used it. Nope, not our job. We'll pray for you every night, just like we do your asshole brother, and which they really thought he was. And so, yeah, mom and dad, I will tell you the most wonderful story. Like I said, they didn't join PFLAG, but when my brother died, my father was buying a plot, a cemetery plot, so he could be buried near my mom and eventually my dad. And this little Hispanic woman came out from the funeral home to sell him the plot. And the same funeral home that had sold him the plot, blah, 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 blah. And like, don't even, well, he's gone now, but so don't even buy me a plot because there's no plot for me. But they're sitting there, and Dad's describing this, and he says, she says, "Do you have other children?" Yes. And my dad had tried to put in my mother's obituary 2 sons, Stephen, who's the senior pastor of the Second Baptist Church of Houston, and Tim, who conducts the San Francisco Men's Chorus. And when I got to Fort Worth, I'm like, oh no, I won't even come to the funeral. No, no, no. You change it, or I'm not staying. No, we've been way too far down this path, 30 years. So, of course, he changed it, and he was fine. He wasn't grumpy. He's like, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done it. So, little Hispanic woman selling him a funeral plot and cemetery plot, and she says, "Do you have any other children?" And he goes, "I do. I have a son." And she goes, "Well, what does he do?" And he says, he conducts the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus. And she starts to cry. And she said, "I have a lesbian daughter, and I've never been able to talk to anybody about it. And she's getting married to her partner, and I don't know what to do. I don't know what to go." And my dad says, "I took her hand and said, don't build walls, just build bridges. Go to her wedding." What? So it took him, well, he was 90 by that point, so he'd softened. He'd had plenty of years. But the truth of the matter is some people soften and some people harden. So, yeah, I wish he'd come to that earlier, but nonetheless, he came to it. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Isn't that wonderful?
I mean, it's like we just need to take a moment. That
Yeah.
is
The progression
incredible.
of a human.
Yeah.
He had his moments. He certainly had his moments. Shall I tell the Corianas in Hell story? It's one of my favorites. So, what time is it?
It is 8:10, so you'll tell
Y'all
the
bored?
story, and we'll see what else
Not yet,
everyone
she
wants
goes,
to talk about.
TikTok.
I'm sorry. Yeah, 8:10.
Had a boy and a girl, and my ex-wife took the boy under her wing and made sure that he hated his father. And he was 7. And the 9-year-old girl, she tried, and she's like, "Oh no, no, because once a month I get to go up and be surrounded by gays, and they're doing my hair, and they designed my prom dress, and oh no, I'm not gonna, no." And her mother would tell her that she was fat and ugly. And then she would come to Dallas where the gays were like, "You're the most beautiful thing on earth." And she felt like a princess. So she stayed my best friend. Oh my gosh. We shared everything and things that we shouldn't have told each other about our boyfriends and stuff. And my son, when he was graduating from high school, said, "I don't want you to be my father. And I don't want anything to do with you." So he went away. For about 6 or 7 years, I didn't have any contact with him. And then when I did have contact, he came to Dallas and said, "I want to see you." And I'm like, "Okay." And he came to tell me that he had changed his name because he was going to move back to Dallas and didn't want anyone to ever know I was his father. Sitting across from me. So, yeah, that was a lot. And now we're best friends, by the way. We fast forward another 20 years, and we are best friends. He's precious and has apologized and been so sorry for those lost years and all that, but it took a while. And so Coriana, my daughter, moved out here with her husband in 2010, and then this job had just come open. And I'm like, my best friend daughter is moving to San Francisco. That's a nice job. I'll take it just so I can be with her every week and or full time. And she had just had a baby, my granddaughter, who I was with today. And I took her to the Legion of Honor to see
The Galpé. Is it stunning? I've seen videos.
I walked in and I was like, why is every drag queen in town not here right now taking
Yes.
notes? It's the most beautiful work you've ever seen. Have you been yet?
You have to go. Yeah.
They've extended it. There was a crowd there. We went at 10:30 this morning on a Thursday, and there's a crowd. It's jaw-dropping. Anyway, back to real life. Anyway, I was with my
jealous you
daughter,
went to
my
that.
granddaughter, who's 11, and we went to see Galpay today. So we get out here, and life's grand, and we have a baby, and it's just great. And 4 years ago in November, my daughter died, and here in San Francisco. And my beloved best friend daughter, she died. And yeah, and life will never be the same. It's part of what has brought my son and I together, because you're like, okay, we're all that's left. We better love on each other real hard. So, yeah, I was getting around to my father, who never quite got over his Baptist roots. So I don't know why I thought I could use my father, the Baptist minister, as a counselor or therapist of any kind. I should have known better. No, because the basis of his understanding is completely different than the basis of my understanding. So, and I would call and I would go, I just can't stop crying. He goes, you're not supposed to cry in public. Don't cry in public. And I was like, okay. And I just like, he goes, there's a fine line between grief and self-pity. And I mean, just all this just bullshit. And I'm like, okay, bye. I'll go pay a real therapist. So we keep going and keep going. And he laid this thing on me about, well, Coriana's with your mother and they're probably singing hymns. And I was like, okay, just stop. I don't believe Coriana's with mom, wherever mom is. Well, what does that mean? I was like, Dad, you already know this. I told you this 15 years ago. I don't believe in your heaven and your hell and your definition of God and where we go. Well, I mean, he was just, where do you think we go? And I was like, I think we go. Because I talk to Coriana, I see her all the time. She's with me. She talks. I know she's here. So, no, she's not off somewhere in heaven. Well, you don't think she's in heaven? And I was like, Dad, she didn't believe that either. I mean, none of us out here believe it. And so that was it. And it was bad. It was just bad. Oh, I can't believe you don't believe, her pearly gates. Oh, geez. So this is the great story, and it's in the book, and it's just delicious. The Thanksgiving following that my brother's family had the big Thanksgiving dinner in Texas. I do not go to those. And there were like 18 grandkids and nephews around. And my father says, everybody come in here. And they're all watching the Cowboys play football. They're not happy about him summoning them. And so he summoned them into the big room. And some of them are just dates of nephews that don't know what's going on. And he sits here as the patriarch and he goes, Corietta's in hell.
Oh.
And
Oh my gosh.
apparently I wasn't there, but my son has told me all about it. Somebody went, what? Well, Tim doesn't believe in hell, and he said in heaven and hell, and Corietta didn't either, so she must be in hell, and I'm just like this. And people were starting to cry, like her sister-in-law was starting to cry, and they finally just got him out of the room, and it was like, Corietta's in hell. Past the giblet gravy. So it's just one of my favorite stories of how horrible religion what it can do to people's minds, that you could say that about your granddaughter, because that's what he thought. And Cash, yeah. To which I said to my therapist, I had been calling my father every day since my mother died for 5 years, being the best son in the world. And my therapist said, stop. Yeah, no. You can call him every week or, check, but no. So there you go. That was a lot.
That was a zig and a zag, but you see my list of questions, but there's just so much richness in.
Those didn't work.
I know. if someone in the audience wants to ask specific
Yes.
questions about the chorus and your achievements and your legacy and what's going to happen
Wah,
next.
wah.
Right.
Let's talk of the good
So-
stuff.
Let's pivot. What questions do you all have right there at the end? And thank you so much for stopping in today.
Yes.
Hi, yeah, in another enlightening conversation. I have two questions. One is, obviously sitting here, you made it so easy, but I can imagine the loss, like it's been deeply felt, and how did you handle that? Because even though these relationships are broken, there is a loss.
Yes. My mother, father, only brother, and daughter have all died since I arrived here in that really short span of time, especially since two of them are young, died fairly young. I said the stupidest thing at the emergency room, and I don't know if this is in the book or not, but my daughter she was a pediatric oncology nurse at UCSF. So she was taking care of children all the time, and children meaning up through teenage years. And she kept lifting them and was messing up her back. And then finally, a mother of a child, fainted, and Coriana picked her up and ripped her back. So she ended up having anterior and posterior spinal fusion, which means they go in from the front for 3.5 hours and they flip you over and go in the back. And she, I can tell this, she never recovered. And the pain medication, the pain plan, even though her husband is a doctor and she's a nurse, oxy is a bad thing because she was in such pain. And so she medicated herself the night she died. And we don't think that she overdosed on purpose because she had this little 7-year-old girl upstairs watching a movie, and we don't think that was part of it. But I was there, and because her husband called me immediately, I lived 7 minutes away, and said, get over here, get over here. I just found Coriana. And so I was there with him, sitting on the bed while the 7 paramedics tried to revive her. And they had the least bit of pulse, and I'm telling you this for a reason, the least bit of pulse. And so they wouldn't pronounce her dead. They took her to the emergency room, and I had to take my then partner home, and he took Clara with him, and then I went to the hospital, and I came in, and they took me to a room with a social worker and a doctor by myself, and her husband wasn't there, and they said, she's gone. And just that shock kicked in, and I said, it's okay. I've watched hundreds of my friends die through the AIDS pandemic. I've been at their bedside. I've watched this happen. And the social worker reached over and said, it's not your daughter. It wasn't your daughter. And what broke me? That broke me. That just completely, I'm like, okay, you idiot. What a stupid thing to say, like you're prepared for this. Back to that story. I was prepared for it. I wasn't prepared for the magnitude of it being my best friend, but I had dealt with death. I had sat at the bedside of friends and watched them pass and held their hands. So that part I was prepared for. It just was. And to answer your question, I can't believe it's almost 4 years. Janet was there in that time, and the chorus was devastated because they knew her very well. And she was a wild woman, and so her memorial service was held at the Sidney Goldstein Theater, where we do our concerts. Wow. There were 700 people there. The programs for her memorial service were handed out by 2 groups of people, drag queens and Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, at her memorial service with blow-up palm trees it was just delicious. So we dealt with the immediate pain by doing crazy things and having an awesome party. I'm nowhere near over it. Not even. I've read all the books. I know all about the grief in a box. If you know the ball in a box, I know all the stuff. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. I will never get over that. Sorry for the bad news. And you're, yeah, I'm not a superhuman, and it's that then followed by the pandemic was part of your question of, when did you decide you're done? And I'm 71, so yeah.
So if you don't mind, my
Yeah.
follow-up question, which is something that you kind of briefly touched on, and as I was just looking through, I saw the Baha'i Center that you mentioned. I'm a human rights lawyer myself, but I mainly deal with war crimes and mass atrocities. I don't deal with LGBTQ rights, but one thing that for me was very strange and something that I feel like I'm really grappling with is working with community who face persecution for simply being who they are, not as genocide and all of that. And yet, within these communities, they don't seem to accept LGBTQ community. And for me, I see this like tension, like you were persecuted for being who you are, and yet you don't accept another community. Like, is it religion? What is the reason? Like, so that is just like, I just couldn't understand the mentality.
And Tim, do you mind repeating her question?
Yeah, sure. The question is working with various communities who have been discriminated against because of who they are and not LGBTQ. And these communities, religious communities, who've been persecuted can persecute other minorities just pretty easily. And how is that possible that people who've been persecuted can't understand that they should be empathetic and open themselves up to all people, all underserved minority groups? Oh boy, can I be just dastardly cynical? It's human nature. We gather in tribes, and this is my tribe, and we believe this part, and you have that tribe, and it may cross over. Our tribes may cross over, but they may not. But I will tell you this. Okay, here's a good one. When I was a teenager, I made fun of the homosexual boys or the faggot boys because it made me feel like they would never suspect me if I make a joke about a effeminate boy. I was the bully. I was in a tribe for which that was so uncomfortable, and I was that. And I just think that we define lines that make us comfortable within our communities, and I think it's human nature. And we protect ourselves and we protect our people. There is a religious component, and back to your Baha'i, we didn't have anywhere to rehearse. We'd been wandering around. I say it was like the 40 years in the wilderness, rehearsing just anywhere. And the chorus had gotten so big with 300 singers that it was terrible. And one of our singers, Justin Taylor, our board chair actually, was walking down Valencia, and he looked up at the Baha'i Center and he was like, "What is that?" Because it's kind of tucked in there under the freeway. And he knocked on the door, rang the doorbell, and said, "Hi." And the lady came and he said, "What's the deal?" And she was like, "Oh, well, let me show you our rehearsal, our meeting hall, which is this stunning room with 400, that seats 400 people." And he started talking to her about Baha'i, and she was like, "We love all people. We're open to all people, and we don't discriminate against anybody." And it's it's the major tenet of the Baha'i religion, is that all people are whole and worthy and of God. And so we ended up rehearsing there, and then years later when they put it on the market, we didn't have any money, and so we went away and started wandering again. And they a couple years later, the realtor called and said, "We don't know who you are, but the Baha'i Center wants to sell this building to you. That they just want to sell it to you." They did not lower the price. They didn't want to sell it that badly or share in the cost, but it was just wonderful. And we came back over, and then that's a whole miraculous story of how in the world we bought a building. And we dedicated it in January. We dedicated our new 4-story building in January of 2020. We opened our building, and then what happened in March of 2020? We shut it back down. And we've managed to make it through the whole year. Oh, well, 2 years. Yeah. Miracle. Did that answer your question, kind of? It's a really cynical answer because I don't think that it's going to get better.
I don't know if is it cynical or just honest?
Well, there's a fine line there, isn't there?
I mean, cynical's like the twang at the end of the honesty.
Yeah, no, I think this is 100% the truth. I've found it to be true in my life of groups, affinity groups, and the fear of different, the fear of somebody who's an outlier. Boy, do we find it in the South. Oh,
Absolutely.
boy,
Over,
it's way worse in the South.
over
Yeah,
goofy stuff.
yeah.
Are there any other
Well, that was only one.
questions?
You want to know why I'm going and where?
You discarded that. You wanna come back.
Of course. Yeah. Hold on. Did you have one?
No, I just also think it's internalized homophobia, so that people can't accept us because they can't accept themselves. And
100%.
that's just beat into us.
100%. This is how you are to be.
Right.
And
If you
even,
don't fit that mold, then I don't like you.
yeah, there's just no rational, logical way to say that we don't fit into God's creation. Except for this one book. Well, except for this one book that the people use as a weapon and don't really read it. Yes.
If it's not too off topic, how did you finance buying buildings?
I'm so glad you asked. It's insane. So the building, the price was $10 million, which in San Francisco is nothing because you could buy a Pack Heights house for 20. I mean, when you put that into, this is a building built in 1928. It's an Art Deco jewel. So it wasn't that bad, although we found out since that buying a 100-year-old building is buying a 100-year-old building and shit's just falling off of it. But nonetheless, so it was a $10 million thing, and we had an original member from 1978 and his partner, and he was still singing all these years later. And they were friends of mine, and I knew they had money. And so this founding member, a beautiful Chinese man, had said, well, we love this building. We love it, and they're developers. And he said, we think that the Corys should have this. I'm like, yeah. And he goes, we're going to give a gift. So we went into this process with the real estate company because the Corys at that point had $1 million in our endowment, which was amazing for any nonprofit in this city. We had $1 million, mostly the gift of a really wonderful couple who'd left a lot of it to us. Okay, so we thought, okay, we have 10%. There's no way we could finance $9 million. But we thought Ed and Terry would give us $1 million. That's what we thought, and we would be to 20%. Oh my gosh. So we went through this whole process. They had said nothing, they'd said nothing. And finally, our executive director and board chair were like, you have to call them and say, pee or get off the pot. And so I did. And I was like, I didn't say pee. I used number 2. And I didn't say you need to do number 2 or get off the pot. It was a different word. And so I said, y'all, we're turning in a letter of intent to purchase this building. What's your gift? We have to know. And it's like they hadn't talked about it for 6 months. Well, I mean, talking to each other. I'm like, you already know what the answer is. And they said, okay, well, we got to move some money, and we're gonna, if we don't know if we do that, and then we didn't. I'm like, look, just say it. Say it. And they're like, well, we're thinking about 5. And I was like, 5 what? And they said, well, we're thinking about giving you $5 million. And they did. No, this couple, the Baha'i didn't give us, the Baha'i didn't have any money to give us. But so Ed and Terry gave us $5 million, at which point you can't say no to buying a building. Someone just paid half of your building. So so when the pandemic hit, we had to finance the other $5 million interim loan, but we managed to do it, and here we are singing in 20 days, my last concert. Why? We already know why. I'm just tired. And when I realized that it was time, I announced it a year ago because it takes that long for a position of this to really find somebody great, which they have, and I started looking at cost of living around the country because I'm going to be on Social Security in about 6 weeks. And San Francisco is not one of the possibilities on Social Security if you don't already own your home. And I've worked for either churches or gay nonprofits my whole life. Just do the math. And so it was Dallas, where my grandkids are, three grand girls in Dallas, not staying here. Palm Springs, where the gays go to die. And I don't have a Speedo and I don't like martinis. And so that was off the list. My son says, you can't come back to Texas because you've been gone too long and you've gotten too liberal, and you will be that old man standing on an overpass with a big sign that says, fuck Trump, and someone will shoot you. And I was like, okay, you're right. And then all the others, oh, it's so true. And then all the rest of the Texas crazy. So the closest, and I wanted to be near water because for 60 years I lived in Texas where it's brown. And so I'm moving to Portland.
Oh, wow.
I am moving to Portland, Oregon, and I bought a condo on the Columbia River, and the river runs right where Valencia is, out my window, just river. And I don't fish,